Hello and welcome. This time of year, we begin to get a lot of messages and emails that begin to discuss the transition for student athletes as they begin to leave the middle school and enter into the high school experience, or even the younger high school athlete, the freshman going into that upperclassman year, that sophomore, junior year, where there's more of a varsity component to their athletics. And so I thought today would be a wonderful opportunity for to have a seasoned, experienced voice to discuss this topic. As many of you have watched in the past, listened to in the past, Tamara Siemon is a mental performance health coach. I've had her on several times before. And Tamara, thank you so much for joining us today. It's really a great opportunity for parents to hear from you again.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Coach. Happy summer. And we, down here in Georgia, we go back to school the first week of August. So I love that we're talking about this now because it is right around the corner. And I know a few weeks after that for you guys up in the Northeast. Just a quick little bit about me. I am a mindset mental performance coach. I work with student athletes as young as, I would say, 10, and then up through teens and into college. And I work with kids who are in individual sports, whether it's swimming, track, as well as every team sport you can imagine. And the common thread, as we were talking about, is managing anxiety, right? And how to develop and keep confidence. And this is for kids at every age, at every stage, including very elite athletes. So thank you for bringing me on, and I'm excited to dig into this today.
Well, the best thing that I always feel good about after you and I have a chance to catch up is every time that we've ever had a previous discussion, parents flood my inbox with, wow, I really love that topic. I really love that discussion. And it just so happens that, you and I have worked with families together, in a cooperative basis, and their experiences are so overwhelmingly positive that I thought, you know what, I have to get Tamara back on. But parents are asking, and I really would love for you to kind of take a deeper dive on this, is they're so used, their athletes, their student athletes are so used to going step 11, 12, 13, 14, but when they get to that 13 or 14, the next step off the diving board is, wow, I'm going against, athletes that are 3, 4, and in some cases 5 years older. So I know you have children that are these ages. I know that you have played, both you and your husband have played sports at the highest levels of college. How do you begin to discuss or broach this topic when you're working with athletes?
Great question. I think it comes down to looking at this as a chapter in your journey, right? And it requires that the kid and the parents zoom out. I've been saying that a lot lately to myself, to my clients. And here's what I mean by that. Yes, you have to pay attention to the details, and yes, you need to focus on working hard day in and day out. But when you enter high school, you've got 4 years to develop, and we're not even just talking physical. If we want to look at the elite athletes, it's 4 pillars. It's the physical, it's the mental, it's the nutrition, and it's the recovery. So all of that is a lot to manage. And oh, by the way, you're still a student and you're still dating and like hanging with your friends. You still need to be a kid. So I always say zoom out. And how do we do that? We want to make sure that we still love the game. That as a parent, we're not having to nag our kids to, you really need to stretch today. You really need to go hit the gym today, right? So what are we trying to accomplish, right? So zooming out, it's freshman year. Instead of looking at these upperclassmen as a threat, look at them as an asset. What can you learn from them? But also, what can you bring to the table? because we all have that unique blend.
Right.
Right. So what are you really good at that you might be able to show somebody who's 3 years older than you are? Like, this is about the journey. And so you have to be very deliberate about saying, I can't get wrapped around the axle on the fact that now I'm the youngest. Like, I'm going to go in and I'm just going to learn and I'm going to have fun and I'm going to see what happens.
Now, one of the biggest topics that I begin to broach when I'm working with families of student athletes, and you just touched upon this, with regard to strength, nutrition, recovery, sleep, etc. I think, can you just share your thoughts on student athletes and the kind of the need or the requirement to begin to look into strength and nutrition as a part of the athletic experience? Because for so many families, it is game focus or all games and not a lot of practice / preparation. But we talk about practice, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about strength, nutrition, recovery. And that is absolutely required beginning in high school. So how do you begin to integrate those things from middle school to high school, in your opinion?
I think the parents need to understand the value of it, because we're looking at the child as a whole. You know, we can get very focused on just the physical, right? The lessons, the practices, the batting cage, the pitching lessons, but that's just a piece. So again, zooming out, knowing that when, like, for example, my son is a rising ninth grader. So he's 14, just finished 14U travel. And he just started lifting with his high school teammates maybe a month ago. And it's been so fun to watch him go from being so nervous, but now it's like there's boys and he understands and he's listening a little bit better about, I can't lift every day, even though I love the way it makes me feel, because I have to recover and I have to stretch. And oh, it makes sense that I need to hydrate. So we need to start looking at the athlete as an entire person and not just the physical skill set, because you can have that, but if you don't have the mental, or if you're dehydrated, you can't track a ball. If you haven't eaten enough, you're going to pass out in the heat. If you're not strong enough, then like it really doesn't matter how many reps you've taken in the cage.
And one of the great things that you just kind of broached in there is the rapport and the relationship development between the younger athletes and the older athlete in kind of a common setting. In other words, strength training, and you get together and you're hanging out. First of all, you're making good decisions. You're taking care of your body. You're looking at how the older athletes perform, how they can, train. And so you begin to emulate and follow. But there is a camaraderie component that I think we overlook. We kind of look at things in 30, 60, 90-minute increments, whether it's lessons or strength training. But really, in reality, that's an all year round kind of activity for athletes. Maybe you can share that now as you watch your son. Maybe that helps him with regard to, confidence. It's like, oh, I can do this, or I know what it looks like to be this. And then in 2 years, I'm going to look like that. Can you share that a little bit? The vision that the younger athletes begin to be able to see their path in front of them.
Yeah. I think at its core, this is like the biggest blessing of playing team sports is when you can have that interaction. And when in the weight room, even if people are lifting different amounts, it's still like an even playing field because everyone's doing it. Right. And people want to see, like, effort is contagious and progress is contagious, and working hard and having fun is contagious. So it's been fun to see my son. He's a goofball. He works hard, but he likes to have fun. So like to see him come out after 2 hours and he's, saying goodbye to the upperclassmen, like he gave himself the chance to get comfortable. The playing field was leveled as soon as they all started doing the coach-led exercises. And then it was just, we're teammates. I don't care that you're 14 and I'm 17. Like, You spot me, I spot you. And so I think we have to get out of our head. We have to stop worrying so much about, I'm younger, I'm weaker, I'm not as this, I'm not as that. Like, do you? What do you bring to the table? If you're going to make a team, you obviously bring value in some capacity. So let's let that be the focus and hold on to that to create your confidence.
I think this is absolutely perfect timing. I'm going to throw you a little bit of a curveball here, but I really want to talk about, you're living this, and I know your daughter, I believe she's a little bit older than your son, right? Is that correct?
She's a rising junior, plays softball and lacrosse, and we're
Okay.
figuring all that
So when
out.
we talk about anxiety, we especially with regard to athletics, but we also don't recognize the other social dynamics of the middle school athletes, students going into high school, the social media, all the relationships. There's a lot of unknown as you leave the comfort of the middle school and really your childhood, going into the older crowd, the cool crowd. How does your son envision that transition over and above athletics? We talk a lot about athletics, but in reality, these agers, they come with a lot of responsibility. You're talking about, you're almost getting ready to drive in a year or two. You're going to hang out with kids that are into and involved in other social activities above and beyond athletics. How do you, as a parent, explain that when you're working with families across the country as a way to prepare them for what lies ahead within the high school years?
Great question. I think what we do, my husband and I, is we try to stay in front of our angst and our concerns, because there's that part of you that wants to protect and smooth the path. And so I always find, like, if you're feeling something, if you're anxious, whatever it is, like, articulate that. So I will say to my husband, I'm worked up about XYZ. Like, I just need you to talk me off the ledge. Let's meet in the middle so I can feel better about what's going on. And sometimes it's just, we have all these thoughts and feelings. Just because you have a thought or a feeling doesn't mean it's true. But you have to get it out, and you have to have somebody to talk to about it. And then it's okay, let's trust our kid, right? Like, our child has navigated, that kindergarten, every stage. As you look back, you can be reminded, my child has successfully navigated every challenge with our help. So this isn't going to be any different. And I need to trust him or her and just be a calm, steady presence. And the best way to be that calm, steady presence is, if you're feeling anxious, have that conversation with a friend or a spouse, right? And sometimes I'll say to my kids, I'm anxious about this. I trust you completely. I'm just working through what I've got going on. So please, it's not you. You haven't done anything. I believe in you. I'm just processing it. And sometimes I just need to, like, put that out in the universe so they don't feed off of my energy.
Well, you just brought up a great point, and I want to kind of go there because you mentioned, as a parent, with regard to specifically athletics, we want to get out ahead and smooth out that road, clear away obstacles, or create a path of least resistance. But in reality, athletics are basically a mountain climb, and there are going to be jagged rocks. There are going to be walls to scale. There are going to be challenges and difficulties. Can you talk about the need to let our student athletes, as they're getting older, leaving that, that what I call 12 to 14, 15-year-old window? Life is hard. Athletics are hard. They are not easy. And oh, by the way, they're the ones competing. We as parents are fans and spectators. I think there's this fine line that sometimes parents become the competitor, and parents are looking to have that snowplow out in front to remove obstacles. Can you talk about that a little bit and kind of some of the suggestions that you have for parents?
Yeah, no, it was perfectly articulated there, Coach. And I think that as parents, we need to, Like, let's be real about it. I'm not going to criticize anybody else for that blurred line, because we have to be so involved. This is the culture that we live in today, the expectation. So it takes a lot of kind of self-awareness and breathing sometimes, and just like having a plan. Sometimes I have to say, all right, we're about to head into this season. How do I want to show up as a parent? And I have to be very mindful of that, because otherwise I'm reacting, right? So it goes back to when your child is 2 and they're having a tantrum, you kind of have to prepare for the tantrum and not let yourself react. Well, in this same sense, expect it, know that the pull is going to be there to drag you in, but we have to let them figure it out, because otherwise they'll be 25 expecting us to still figure it out. And so I force myself to think about that. Like, I'm hurting my kids if I smooth the road out, because eventually they're going to be adults. They're going to be off the payroll. They need to figure it out,
Right.
you know?
Well, I really try to get parents to understand it, and for parents that are listening or watching right now, whenever that may be in your universe. First of all, I want to let people know Tamara is available. I'm going to have all of her contact information, both at the podcast level, the YouTube, and the social media interactions. All of her contact information readily available. She's on social media. I'll have all of her handles. Also, Tamara is going to be in the Baseball Blue Book. I think it's a great opportunity for parents to be able to find these types of mental performance coaches, mental health performance coaches. I think it's important because I think it's an integral part, just as a physical trainer would have with regard to hitting or pitching or fielding, et cetera. I think we overlook and undervalue the mental mindset of an athlete, even at the younger age groups. The weight of expectation, and this is something that I feel Tamara brings tremendous value for families that are very active and engaged and involved. So I will have all that information. She will be in the Baseball Blue Book. But I always try to tell parents, Tamara, that when they have a question, it's probably not an individual based question. Probably hundreds of other parents are either thinking or feeling the same way. And so one of the questions that I know that I get asked all the time is, how do I know if my son is really this good or daughter is really that good? Like, I mean, at what point is this going to show itself? And I always tell parents, it shows itself every day, but you have to be the voice of positivity. There's a lot of, we see physical injuries. Mm-hmm. We can see physical pain, but we don't see, or we sometimes don't look deep enough to the stress of the mind. And I would love for you to talk about, almost 70-80% of athletes have some very of doubt. They have some insecurity about not being as good as what everybody needs them to be or wants them to be. So when a parent contacts you for help, what's some of the first information that you're trying to gather before you begin to work directly with that student athlete?
So I'll speak to the parent for about 20 minutes once they've reached out. And my goal in that conversation is to understand what prompted you to reach out. The easier I can ask the question, I'm going to get everything I need, right? And I'll get examples from within their sport. And then I also want to know, like, is there a history of anxiety or depression? Is there ADHD? Because we know when you have ADHD, your emotions, positive and negative, are 10x that of someone who doesn't, right? So if you're on the mound and you have a meltdown and you have ADHD, your meltdown is going to be pretty bad until you learn tools to control it, right? And to manage that. So I try to just get an understanding of the history, the family dynamic, what the parents' goals are. And then it's time to talk to the kid. It's time to have that one-on-one. And as I mentioned at the top, every single athlete I've worked with, the subject of confidence is always there. How can I be more confident, Coach T? Where does it come from? How do I forget my mistakes? That is like number one, regardless of gender or sport. So tools for that, right? As we talk about confidence, confidence comes from knowing who you are and what your abilities are versus your stats or the outcome from that day. If we're only confident because we went 2 for 4, that's a pretty rough ride,
Right.
right? Because the valleys are coming. But like, if we know my skills are my skills when I show up on the tennis court, at the pool, or on the field, these are my skills. And I can look back in my mind and know even just this past week how hard I've worked. I haven't forgotten how to throw, hit, field, etc. And so that's that stable confidence that we're shooting for versus the more fragile one, which is solely dependent on like, what'd you do today?
I would
So
love I would love
yeah.
for you to be able to now, on top of that, what are the signs that parents might look for with regard to something's misfiring? What is it? Body language? Is it isolation? They just go in their room and shut the door. Like, what types of kind of signs should parents begin to look at or look for and say, "Oh, I got to give Tamara a call. I got to reach out to Tamara. This isn't good."
Yeah, well, you just mentioned two good ones. I think that we as parents, we know our children. We know in our gut, we can tell, are they having fun? Are they still enjoying it? Is their body language horrible? I mean, sometimes it's really obvious because you'll see a meltdown or they'll throw something in the dugout or they'll explode on you after a match or something, right? So trust your gut, do a check-in to make sure they're still having fun, but in a casual way, right? Are they isolated? Are they constantly scrolling on social media? And like at home, their body language is just one of angst, and you can see them and feel the weight of the world, and that you can see it as a parent, you can feel it.
So I really want parents to understand how to gain access to you, your services, etc. So not only do I want you to share your contact information, but share like this is why you want to work with me, because I always tell parents that ask me, who do you recommend? And the first, obviously, this to be true. I'll say
Mhm.
this is the person because her background, but more importantly, she's living it today as a parent. So therefore, this is someone that is actually immersed in the now. It's not
Mhm.
as if my children are all grown, but your children are actually living these experiences. So Tamara offers a really unique dynamic. Again, I'll let everybody know, former Division I athlete at Duke, husband, former Division I athlete at Wake, big ACC family. Don't know what that
Mhm.
basketball season's like in that house. But I will tell you that this is a trusted resource for families, regardless. It doesn't just have to be athletics. It can be piano. It can be a other hobby, theater. Uh, Children today grow up in a social media driven world, and they don't have outlets that allow them to understand what really is going on and who they are capable of being and how to help themselves internally, not just externally, physically. So, Tamara, how do people reach out to you, or how do you prefer that they contact you?
My website's an easy one. And I know you'll put the tag, but elitemindsetdevelopment.com. There's a contact me button there, or on any of my social media handles. But if you want to talk and explore and you're not sure, hey, I think this is going on, but I need to talk through it and see if maybe you could help my child, reach out. The worst that we can say is collectively, no, it's not a good fit, or, I'll help you in any way that I can, whether your child works with me or not. But I schedule one-on-ones. Like right now I have a client who's in Italy. And so we Zoom that way. I have local, I have national, and I'll be working with groups too. So it's really, if your child is struggling with anxiety or any of the things we've talked about, reach out, let's have a conversation and see if a few sessions working on the mental skill set would be of benefit.
And if somebody is so inclined to find you on social media, whether that be Instagram or Twitter or X or whatever we call it today, how would they find you?
So Elite Mindset Development is Facebook and Instagram. And then it's just my name on Twitter/X. And you did ask me one quick thing. There are many professionals in my space. And so I always say you need to choose the person you're most comfortable with, right? And I don't pretend to be that for everyone. I welcome the opportunity. It's a blessing for me, but I may not be the right fit. So having said that, why me? I would say that male athletes seem to open up a little bit more to females. And that's feedback coming from the parents, right? Like, hey, I chose you. I could have chosen a male, but I chose you because the child said you were easy to talk to. And the next thing I knew, he was talking to you for an hour and a half. It's that kind of stuff. So my ability, I think, to disarm and engage and treat the child as an equal. Hey, I'm on your team. And I'm just very clearly trying to understand, what are you struggling with? And how can I help you? At the end of this session, at the end of this month, where do we want to be? And sometimes having that simple conversation, it just disarms them. They immediately feel this person's on my side, right? This person gets it and gets me and can help me. So I would say that's kind of my unique angle. And yes, I'm living it. I still remember the days as an athlete, and I'm living it as a parent. So I really do understand the struggle, but also like the goal, and that we have to enjoy the journey. We have to remember to do that.
I think it's imperative to understand that last sentence, the journey. And we as adults, hopefully, will have many decades as an adult with regard to things that we learned when we were younger. But if we really take a deeper dive into youth athletics, this is one decade, a childhood. And again, I've said this many, many times, but the ages of, say, 10 to 20, 21, that coming out of grade school and really going through the middle school, high school, and college years, there's going to be failure. They're going to fall, but that is part of life's curriculum. And I think having somebody like Tamara available to athletes, as much as we talk about sports nutrition, sports-specific training, strength training, et cetera, skill set development, foot speed, academic, the mind. The mind is something that is a tremendous asset for young athletes, but it can also be the biggest obstacle. And I think if we get out ahead of that, I think it will help have a much more enjoyable experience of the childhood years for the student athletes in whatever sport they so choose. But Tamara, thank you again so much. I really value your thoughts and your opinions. I look forward to talking again very, very soon. Again, parents, student athletes, all of the contact information available for Tamara will be available in the description below. I encourage you two things. Follow her on social media. That way you have the ability, if you're so inclined, to send a direct message and at least initiate a dialogue. And next, write an email and see if there's a time where you can begin to explore a possible working relationship. If nothing else, you gain a great friend and follower with regard to your student athlete, but more importantly, a true visionary and mentor within that space of performance development of the mind. Tamara, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Coach. Have a good one.
You too now.
All right. Bye-bye.